Hello, James Moffat here. Please go to parentingadultchildren.org website and sign up for a free membership and leave a review for this episode. If you have any requests for future topics, send me an email at talkpac@proton.me. That's talkpac@proton.me. Please share this podcast with your friends and family. Now for today's guest interview.
Welcome to the podcast ABCs of Parenting Adult Children. Please join us as we discuss parenting adult children and the unique struggles that it comes along with.
Hello and welcome to ABCs of Parenting Adult Children podcast. My name is James Moffat, and I'll be your host. Today we have a special guest. I'm going to butcher your name probably. I'm going to say Talia Bambola.
Close. Talia Bambola.
There you go.
Yes.
Talia, not Talia. Talia. Very good. All right. Hey, Talia, could you introduce yourself to the listening audience, please?
Totally. So my name is Talia Bambola. I work as a licensed marriage family therapist in California. And one of the specialties in my practice is helping parents at any stage of parenting learn how to be the best parents they can be and help repair with their children of any age. And then I also work with adult children who are processing feelings around their own childhood because they may have had the parents that did the bare minimum, but not really a lot of anything else. And it's trending now to be talking about this. So I think it's more common to be talking about it in therapy than it used to be, both for the parents coming in curious about what their relationship is like with their kids, and then with the adult children trying to process like, wait, that was childhood emotional neglect, or my parents said this phrase and that was actually traumatizing. This is how I feel, or this is why I'm triggered parenting my own kids. So if any of those and the above is currently what I'm working with a lot in my practice.
Oh, that's awesome. I had somebody on yesterday that does something very similar to you, and she was telling me about how parents come to her for adult children, like 18 to 30 year ages, and she said that they come to her specifically for adult children and the issues that they're having with them. They're either all on the autism spectrum or whatever neurodivergent areas that they're in and struggling with. And she said that when she talks to the parents, she starts talking with the parents first and helping with the parents, and the parents are like, "Wait, you mean I need therapy? I need some help?"
Me? It's not me. It's definitely in part you. Yeah.
Yeah. And lo and behold, there are areas that they can improve in. We can all parents can improve in, right?
Yes.
And I'm excited that this sort of thing is parenting adult children is not swept under the rug. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of resources for children, for preteens, for teenagers, but there's not a lot of resources for adult children. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. And we also have a parenting adult children Facebook support group for parents. It's called Tough Love. And we started out in 2015 with 10 members. And at that time, we had 2 teenagers that were giving me a run for my money. And I was doing everything I could to stay out of prison.
Did an orange, but I get tested
No,
daily. Yeah.
I didn't want any boyfriends. So I told my wife's Katie, and I told her, I said, Katie, let's start a Facebook support group and see if there's anybody out there with the same problems. Well, now we have 1.3 thousand members. Yeah, so it took off, and I don't get a lot of engagement out of them, and I'm slowly but surely trying to, I post the media clips and I post the episodes to the Facebook group in hopes that those parents can, gain some insight, right, and get some help and hope and all that. So anyway, my wife's a special ed teacher. She's been doing that for about 25 years. She doesn't deal with adult children. She deals with, K-5, younger kids. So she has her hands full.
It's a necessary job. So my gratitude to her.
Right. All right. So back to you. I'll quit chasing rabbits. Let's see. I'm going to read something from your profile. The second paragraph says, one topic I'm particularly passionate about is how parents can navigate repair when their adult children feel they missed the mark. especially in cases involving emotional immaturity, misattunement, I thought that was interesting, or unmet emotional needs. This is deeply personal and professional for me. I support many adult children of emotionally immature parents. Wait, emotionally immature parents? What? No. And I also understand what it's like to reflect on your own parenting choices as a parent yourself. So let's touch on
Let's unpack
that
that nice
paragraph.
little, just
Let's
easy,
unpack that. Yeah.
easy Sunday morning coffee paper. Yeah,
Yeah, this ought to take the next 30 minutes.
easily, handily. So the reason why this is such a necessary topic is because there are more than a few factors that lead to generational differences in the beliefs on what was the tolerable or acceptable ways of parenting and being parented. So back in the day, as it were, a lot of the societal messaging was around children being help around the house, children being seen and not heard. Children didn't really have the same role or voice that they do nowadays in society, for better or worse. And sometimes I think, honestly, we take it too far and there's like too much freedom given to the child being able to make their own decisions at way too young of an age, for a separate topic and podcast. But we can see the pendulum has swung from like children should be seen and not heard to like advocating, how dare you say that to them? It's like, okay, but there's still like places in society where we have to have like deference and respect. And how do we balance that when a generation of parents is trying to encourage their child to not feel voiceless like they did, but also struggling with watching their kid advocate and be like, wait, I never got to do that. And how am I supposed to give something I never received? How am I supposed to parent with love and emotional maturity and tolerance and regulation when they're having a tantrum or freaking out about something, in quotes? And I never got to do that. I never learned it. It's really difficult to give what we were never given. And it brings up sometimes a lot of resentment in our own self and sadness and grief. Wow, I was a kid. I was just a little kid like my kid is, and I didn't get that. Like, how sad I am for my inner child, and maybe how angry and resentful I am towards my parents. As much as it's true in some cases, most cases, they did the best they could with what they had at the time. Sometimes their best not good enough at all, and sometimes their best was garbage. Like, it's not discounting the effort. I see that it was the best they could give, but their best was so limited. I still came out of childhood with scars. I still came out with childhood emotional neglect because in society, we didn't praise or prize or even talk about emotions at all. Shove them down, trash compact it, rub some dirt in it. I'll give you something to cry about, right? Like, again, what they heard from previous generations
Sure.
leads to parents who do not have emotional maturity, therefore cannot be strong emotional leaders of the household. They tantrum. When the child tantrums, the child ends up being parentified or adultified. In regular terms, I felt like a grown-up way too young, and I had to caretake for my parents' emotional needs and walk on eggshells and not upset them and figure out what mood they were in before I could decide what mood I was in. That is dysfunctional. And that's what we're coming out of now in millennial generation parenting, is not just gentle parenting. Gentle parenting gets a bad rap because people think it means permissive, no boundaries. Gentle parenting is I can be really upset or scared or concerned for your safety and not change my tone and still care for you and love you and like you all in the same vein and not lose my cool. That's me as an adult having to regulate myself and getting down on eye level. And one of the pieces that you mentioned that you found interesting or curious in what I wrote is the misattunement word. Attunement is not a word that we often think of in regular everyday life. As a therapist, we swim in it all the time. Attunement is, can I anticipate or decipher and figure out when you're having a want or a need? Can I give that to you? Can I help you understand what your big feelings are about? Can I be there for you? Can I see that you need a hug? Can I see that you need some quality time with me today? And if I have to go to work, validate, I know mommy's sad that she has to go to work too. And when I get home, we'll do this, right? That wasn't really talked about. It is in, again, the therapeutic world, but it's not talked about in general everyday parenting. Attunement is everything. Being attached securely to your children and being there for them when they have every single want and need, especially from 0 to 3, sets your kid up that if they know they can depend on you at that time, the research actually shows they end up needing you or being less dependent on you in that like draining way, less because you're setting them up for success. I'll always be here for you no matter what. You fly the nest and you come back to me, versus stop doing this. I don't need you. Stop needing me. This is frustrating and annoying. Basically being bothered by having to raise young children and have them depend on you. Spoiler alert, because it pushes on your own dependency needs that never got met. When you struggle with young children or any children of any age, what they're doing is mirroring to you what you might not have received. That's why it's so tough to attune to your child when you were misattuned to, because again, there's that missing link. It's a skill that can be learned and taught, which is great, but that misattunement piece is what often contributes to this larger topic that we're discussing, emotionally immature parents and kids who are going like, hey, that was messed up. I don't care if it was your best, you messed up in these ways, and trying to not have the parent go, well, after all I've done for you, I put a roof over, right? Listing the basic minimum so
Sure.
Child Protective Services doesn't get called. Like, thank you for doing the legal minimum, parents, but like, I needed a hug, or I needed you to tell me you were proud of me. Thanks for the oatmeal, but like, I have trauma that I'm in therapy for because of this. Like, I appreciate the clothes, but like, I needed love instead. So
Don't forget the school books.
yeah, and the school, right? The tuition, all the parenting is one huge multiple layer level sacrifice, and the gratitude is a long-term goal. It's not immediate. You don't get the thank yous sometimes at all every day. But when your child successfully, hopefully individuates, becomes a parent, has to do things for themselves, is a grown up in that sense, and they realize, wow, my parents sacrificed a lot for me. The thank you does eventually come once the frontal lobe develops around 25 to 30. So for any parents
Right.
listening, and if it hasn't in that age range, chances are, and you can be the leader in your family and touch in with your kids and check in and say, hey, did I miss the mark at all? Do not ask this question unless you've gone to therapy and you're prepared to process the answer, caveat. But you can do the good work and the repair later on. It's not going to fix the past, but it is going to show that you care enough to attune now. You may not have known to attune when they were young, but it doesn't mean you have to stay like that for the rest of your life and have a ruptured relationship. It may not ever look like it was if you attune from the beginning, but it's better than nothing. I think it's at least worth a try when adult parents realize, oh, I don't have the relationship I want with my child. I can try, or the adult child goes, I don't like this. I've tried to get close, but if the parent's not doing the work, like you joked about earlier, when the parent's like, wait, no, it's not for me. I'm here for little Timmy. Little Timmy didn't learn this from nowhere, right? Like, he learned
Right.
it somewhere. Whenever I work with kids, I work with parents first too. I send them to the lobby and I'm like, you can go wait there. And I bring them in and I use humor a lot. And I go, so great news. It is your fault. And they're like, what? Like, we're paying you to tell us this? And I'm like, the reason why I frame it that way is you have so much agency for change in this. If what you're doing parenting wise is causing this, that's a fix. It's much easier necessarily than having your child who might have ADHD or some other diagnosis. Like, this is good news that a switch in your parenting and being more attuned could help your child feel more secure. And then we all have a good laugh and they're like, okay, tell me what to do instead. And I'm very strengths-based. Like, this is not so great. Let's do this instead. You want this outcome? We can't do this. We have to do this. And that's where parents usually need their own therapy, because they're like, well, I want my kid to be assertive, but if I talk back to my parents, I would get hit. How do I get over that fear? So a lot of it is reparenting the parents while they're parenting their child and parenting their own inner child at the same time.
Wow. That's a lot.
It is. It's
As
multi.
you were
Yeah.
as you were talking, I was sitting here revisiting my childhood, thinking, wow, they really screwed up.
And a lot of parents do, sometimes intentionally, and a lot do it without trying. This is not, I'm a parent. I'm not bashing parents. I'm holding accountable certain generations who, unfortunately, there was not enough data given to how to be an effective parent because the role of a child wasn't what it is now. We didn't need to care about somebody's emotional life when we were getting blown up in war or having to escape famine. Like, we had different priorities. It was literal survival. Thankfully, not every part of the world, but most parts of the developed world have transcended past that being a daily fear. Again, not all parts, but for the majority of our listeners, I would imagine, if you're in America, that there's a level of ease now that you have where hopefully not on a daily basis, you're worried about, is my house going to be there the next day? Is my family going to be there the next day? But those worries and those fears and that PTSD lives inside of us genetically. That's where epigenetics comes in and transgenerational trauma. What didn't heal at another level heals at the level that it's coming out on. And that's where we often see the problem child is really the one speaking up in the family and going, this is dysfunctional. Like, this has to stop. And they're the ones using their voice, and everybody else, where the system is predicated upon act nice, shove it down, don't feel, don't talk, is looking at this person and going, what are you doing blowing up our spot? Like, don't expose the family secrets. Don't tell me what I'm doing is wrong. Just stay quiet so I don't have to face my discomfort is
Right.
essentially what parents are hoping for. Not to expose all parents, but most parents end up telling me that as we work together. Like, I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to face the shame or the guilt that I feel because I never was taught how to regulate my emotions, and I scream at my kids. And as much as I promised myself I would never be like my dad, the first time that came out of my mouth, we have to go, oh, I'm just like him. If you don't learn what to do instead, you will be doomed, in quotes, to repeat what you were raised with. You have to come in and interrupt the pattern for it to be different moving forward.
Gotcha. Well, I know that from reading the multitude of messages on our Facebook support group, there are a lot of parents that are in conflict and crisis because of behaviors, actions, spoken, unspoken, trauma, kids winding up in jail, kids in addiction, just a whole host of circumstances, right, that the parents are facing, and they don't know what to do, and they're frustrated, and they're angry, and they're hurt, and they just want to fix the kids. And, there's a lot there to unpack. And one of the things I did early on in this podcast is I talked about marriage relationships. I was like, okay, we're talking about parenting, right?
Yep.
So what does a family need? And in the first or second podcast episode, I talked about, hey, let's talk about the marriage relationship. Let's talk about moms. Let's talk about dads. Let's talk about what a healthy relationship looks like. Let's build that foundation from there. And so, it wasn't all encompassing, but I think I hit all the high spots, right? How do kids learn empathy and love and compassion and forgiveness and all of those things? They learn it from their parents. Their parents hopefully are modeling those behaviors and those qualities within their relationship, moms and dads, right?
Yes.
And if they're not, then how do children learn? We as parents want to think that don't do as I say.
But
don't do as I do as I say, right? And that goes in one ear and out the other, and the kids are watching how you act and what you do.
Yeah. Yes.
How do you treat their mother, right? How does the mother treat the dad? Is there respect there? Is there help? All these things.
Yes.
And nobody's perfect, and we all have to learn as we go, right? And so yeah, parenting, the marriage relationship, you have to build a foundation. You have to start with a marriage relationship first.
Yes.
And
whatever we want to see out of our kids has to be modeled to them and from us to others as well.
Right. And I graduated high school in 1980. And so I was raised, I was in high school from 76 to 80. So I was a child of the 70s, basically. I was born in 61. My dad was a drill instructor for 26 years, retired from the Army in 1969. My mother was Austrian. My sister and I were adopted. They were huge, authoritarian parents. And when you said, children to be seen and not heard, that's exactly the way we were raised. And men don't cry, and you do as you're told, or you get a beating. If you want something to cry about, I'll give you something to cry about.
I obey.
So there was no emotional intelligence there whatsoever. It was like he was the drill instructor and I was the recruit. I learned very quickly to stay under his radar and hope and pray that I didn't make him angry, right? And so when I got married and had children, I started listening I recognized in me that I could not parent my children the way my mom and dad parented me, right? Today, my parents would be in prison for some of the crap they did to us kids. Yes, they adopted us from Germany. They brought us to America, and I'm very, very thankful for the things that they did provide for us. They provided medical care. They provided a roof over our head, food, new school clothes every year, school books, medical care, all that stuff, right? All the physical necessities were provided.
Basics.
But my parents didn't know how to demonstrate love to their children. I never felt loved, right? And after this podcast episode, maybe I'm going to need some therapy from you. No, I'm just kidding.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, James here, James Moffett. I wanted to let you know about our current sponsors. These people sponsor the podcast financially and help to underwrite the cost of producing this podcast. And I want to say thank you to them. So Michael Evan Blair is with whenindoubt, spinitout.com. Richard Jones is with secondstarts.com. addiction recovery program. Jonathan Nall, he's the author of Final Approach or finalapproach.com. Kenny Dupar, author of Scoundrels in Iraq. Scott Yamamura, author of Financial Epiphany. Mary Toko is a vocal advocate for vaccine education and parental rights. Andrew Ryan Profashi is a cult and cancer survivor and the author of The War on Love. Melissa Crook is a podcast guest, and she is the insightful and compassionate host of the Feel, that's F.E.E.L podcast. All right. Thank you for listening to this. And now back to your feature presentation.
Most people end up reaching out. They're like, that was in my head. I'm like, sorry, what I do.
So I recognized the emotional garbage that I carted into both my marriage and into,
Totally,
the parenting realm. And so I started listening to, I wanted to say Tony Robbins. That's not right. What was his name? I just had it the other day. He was a Christian psychologist.
it's escaping me now.
Yeah, anyway, he was real good, and I listened to him a lot, and I learned a lot about what it was to be a good Christian parent, right? A loving, compassionate parent. And yeah, there were days that when my kids were just off the wall and doing stupid stuff, I probably reacted a couple of times, more than a couple of times, like my dad reacted to me, right? With anger, lashing out. And I have to tell parents all the time, it's okay to say you're sorry.
Please
Yeah.
say profusely, honestly. Like, it cannot lose its meaning if you make a repair when you mess up. That's part of being a grown-up adult in life.
Right.
Hey, I take ownership. I messed up. If you are curious what was causing it, I didn't sleep, didn't eat, not excusing it, just trying to hear it out loud for myself. I'm sorry. What can I do, if anything, to make it right? And if you need more time, you let me know. And if there's nothing I can do, we can touch on that later. Like, being the first to apologize and taking ownership and having that feel good, and I can't wait to repair. That's where I want a lot of parents to end up getting to, if they can, even if it doesn't save or help their adult-child relationship. It can change all the relationships they have in their work and their marriage and their personal life, if they're dating later on, if they're widowed, like any and all of it. Being able to say, I'm sorry, what I did was not right. It was wrong. It was out of anger. It was out of impulse. And I need to work on that. And I want you to know I am, is much better than like, don't tell me what to do. Like, I'm the parent, you're the child. You listen to me, like, go sit in a corner because you made me feel uncomfortable, is essentially what the emotionally immature response is, or the authoritarian, you'll do as I say. What makes you the expert? Like, you didn't turn out great. If you're parenting me this way, why would I listen to you? So yeah, there's a lot.
And I was as ignorant as the day was long when I was a kid. I had no idea.
Every child is, though, because they don't have, so kids, for like, the brain development is so important for parents to understand why kids make the decisions they make. Infancy lasts from ages 0 to 3. It's not just when they're a little baby till 12 months old. Infancy neurologically lasts from 0 to 3. So it's very important to be attuned and attached to every possible need you can in that phase. And if you don't get that part right, the next blessing is from 9 to 25. Approximately, research shows it can go up to the 30s, when the frontal lobe, the rational, critical decision-making part of the brain, is pruning, developing, and coming online. When you talk to a teenager and say, what were you thinking? They're going to look at you and go, huh? They weren't. This is not talking to this, which is the emotional part of the brain, where they're making decisions from, the amygdala. I did it because it felt good. I did it because she was hot. I did it because everybody else was doing it. They're basing their decisions off feeling. So we can't go to them expecting a rational discussion, because they're making an emotional/impulsive decision. Every child, every person on the world goes through this, and eventually their frontal lobe prunes and they lose what they don't need as connections, and they tune into what they do need. And then they start thinking critically, rationally, logically, and they make quote unquote better or more optimized for long-term growth solutions or decisions. But that's not something we could reasonably expect of a child or a teenager, especially if we don't understand brain development and we're not parenting. The way that I teach parents to parent ideally prevents the rupture long later in life where you didn't give me what I needed emotionally, is when you're parenting a child, your role is to answer every question they have. And little kids ask why in the beginning because they don't know how the world works. And they're literally genuinely curious because it's the first time they're on earth, right? It's your first time being a parent. It's their first time on earth. Give yourself some grace. Answer them. Then they learn, when the critical mind kind of starts to develop around age 8 is when we see it. And they start to go, Well, why? And they're not always asking to learn. They're asking to push your buttons. They're asking to test. They're asking to create their own assertions and their own assertiveness and their own autonomy, which we want to encourage. We don't want to raise a bunch of people pleasers who are more likely to get taken advantage of, become victims, not speak up for themselves, not really get what they want in life or need in life because they're like, I'll just do as I'm told. That's not the generation I'm trying to raise. We can raise somebody who's vocal and respectful. We can raise somebody who goes, you know what, that doesn't work for me. I don't appreciate the way that you spoke to me. Even if it's a child saying it to an adult, we need to, as a society, understand it's an old generation, a former generation that would be horrified by that. I would love it if my daughter one day was able to speak up if somebody hurt her feelings and not have to be like, well, I wanted to be friends with them more than anything, or just because they're an adult means no, just because they're an adult does not mean they get to mistreat you. And like, you definitely don't want to cross me because I'm going to come at it. My specialization as a therapist, like we're going to have a chat and I'm going to make you go back to your own childhood and face why you picked on my daughter. So there's that rationalization of, when I'm parenting a child who's questioning the world to learn more of where they fit in, I want to encourage that and put respectful boundaries of, okay, how do you think you could say that where they could hear it and not just go based off of emotion? Emotions are valid, but we can't always act on what behavior they're making us want to do. And then the questions start to change when the teen becomes older. And then they go, well, should I do this or should I do that? And our job is not to give them the answer. Our job is to help them find their own answer. What do you think? Let's weigh the pros and cons. If you do this, what else could you do? If you buy this car, what can you do here? If you go to this college, what else can't you do? Right? Letting them develop the critical thinking and borrow from our frontal lobe. So eventually when they're adults, they don't come to us with questions. They say, hey, I did this thing and we're proud of them. Or, hey, I did this thing and I messed up and I need help. So there's this balance of how do you attune to your child at each age and what are you expecting? If you want the ideal outcome to be they're individuated, they have autonomy, they're successful in life, whatever that means to you and to them, and allowing their definition to maybe be different from yours. Maybe they don't want to follow in your footsteps. Maybe they don't want to be who you want them to be. So don't force them to be that. Allow them to show you who they are, help them and encourage them and let them be that way in society. And your job is to be that soft landing place and not be the one who's judging them and saying, well, you can't be that, or after all I've done for you, this is not what I wanted. Like, that's not the law school I picked for you. It's like, I don't want to do that. Did you ever ask me who I wanted to be? And a lot of parents go, no, I just kind of told them who they wanted because they think it's like a second chance at their own childhood. Spoiler alert, it is not. You raising kids is not a chance to reparent literally. It's a chance to give your kid what you didn't get. And if you don't have it, please go to therapy or talk to somebody or read some books. I can give a resource list. Like, educate yourself on what's missing to give your kid what you didn't have.
Well, and I think every parent on the planet, they don't want them to experience the pain or the heartache that we experienced.
Totally.
And we want our kids to have it better than we did.
Totally.
Right.
Yes.
And the reality is that a lot of the consequences that we experienced as young adults were because we made really bad decisions, right? And we didn't listen to our parents. Like, I know there were times that my parents tried to teach me things, and I'm like, oh, you're so out of touch. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I remember standing at a payphone. You know what one of those is? I remember standing at a payphone in Houston, Texas. I think I was 26, 27, 28 years old. And I called my parents on their landline and basically ate a huge piece of humble pie. And I told them, I said, you know what? I thought you guys were crazy and out of touch and had no clue about reality. And I've learned the hard way that you're not as stupid as I thought you were. Yeah.
Some things, yeah.
They were. And there were a lot of things that I experienced, the consequences of my mistakes that I could have bypassed had I had a little bit of emotional maturity of my own and ran those thoughts through my head before I made those decisions. And of course, what young adult doesn't think that they've got the world by the tail, right? We're invincible.
Strong. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we're invincible. We don't think about retirement. We don't think about old age. We don't think, because we're living life to the fullest, right? And we're setting the world on fire, and honestly, most of the time we're setting ourselves on fire, But anyway, this is all good stuff, and I can see that I'm going to want you back on the podcast several times because there's
come
a
back
lot.
as you want. Yeah, I'll talk about anything.
there's a lot to unpack here. And I told you earlier that I wanted to kind of keep the podcast episode about 30 minutes. So we have just barely scratched the surface here. Okay. But I appreciate you being on the podcast. And to my listening audience, I want to say thank you for the privilege of your time. And Talia, thank you for being on the podcast. And I look forward to talking to you some more.
Yeah, I would love to.
You can listen to this podcast on the audio version on Captivate FM, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Public Radio. You can watch the video episode on rumble.com, rumble.com. And our website is parentingadultchildren.org. That's parentingadultchildren.org. On the website, you can get my contact information. You can send me voicemail. You can send me email. I'm going to dare some of you to do that. I don't know if anybody's ever listened to any of this, but I'm going to double dog dare somebody to send me an email or send me a voicemail.
Yeah.
I'm going to fall out of my chair if I get a voicemail from somebody. I'll be like, what? It works. Oh my God.
Sometimes intimidating them will help, right? I dare you to do it.
Yeah, I dare you to do it. I don't think you know how to do it. You don't know how to click that button.
Yes.
Yeah. On the website, you get the upcoming show schedule. You can leave a review for the podcast episodes. If you're listening to this podcast episode on Apple Podcasts, which I think 90% of most of my listeners come from Apple Podcasts, because everybody's got an iPhone, everybody's got an iPad, MacBook Pro, whatever. So if you're on Apple Podcasts listening to the episode, you can right there on your phone, you can click on review and you can leave a review right there. And then I get a message of that review. And I've gotten several and I appreciate those. And I would like to see more. I would like to see more engagement. New episodes are released every Friday morning at 8 a.m. And Talia, do you have a website you would like to tell people about?
Yes, I do. So if you're interested in therapy in the state of California, my website for that is therapywithtalia.com. And then if you're interested in parent coaching anywhere else other than California, my website for that is my full name. So that's taliabambola.com. And then I'm most active on Instagram, which is also my name. So you can follow me there. I do a weekly Q&A. And I have my own podcast where we dive into some of these topics too. So I'm very curious to see what else you and I can get into on future episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the horizon is way out there. I can see all kinds of things we can talk about.
Totally.
And I want to give people little snippets, little nuggets of truth that they can sink their teeth into and go about their day, right? I as I told you earlier, most of my podcasts go 50 minutes or longer because there's so much to cover.
Totally.
And I'm learning on this podcast journey that people like little chunks of information, right? So I'm learning to kind of shorten it because I do a lot of rabbit chasing like I'm doing right now, and I got to stop that. So anyway, my Instagram for this podcast is Parenting Adult Children 125, and I upload video magic clips from Riverside, little short 1 minute video snippets of each upcoming episode. Episodes come out at 8 a.m. on Friday. So on Monday, I'll upload a snippet from that podcast episode to Instagram so people can, look at those and preview it and decide whether or not they want to listen.
Awesome.
So anyway, thank you everybody for joining and listening, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Please tune in next week for another episode of our podcast on parenting adult children.